overcome. Yes, we can.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
What the f*** is wrong with you?
Well, welcome to the show. I'm Chip Franklin. This is What the Franklin on the Really American Media. So the word is every policeman in New York City today is in his blues looking for trouble. I don't think there's going to be the trouble they anticipate, but we don't know. And I'm, of course, referring to the upcoming indictment of a former president, first time it's ever happened, and the significance that plays. So let's get right to it and bring in former federal prosecutor and current attorney, Randy Zelin. And hi, Randy. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning to you. And of course, the one and only White House correspondent, author of Free the Press, Brian Karem. All right. So we all, we knew this was coming down, obviously. Although we didn't, what part of this surprised either one of you about this indictment? Randy, start with you.
Well, we need to define surprise. I think my surprise really was when it was going to happen. We have been thrown so many curveballs. It makes Oral Hershiser's curveball look like a 50-mile-an-hour softball.
You went back 25 years for a baseball reference?
Well, look, he had some curveball.
Okay.
So the
Burt Blyleven. If you're going to go back there, do Burt Blyleven. He had
Minnesota Twins. Okay. I remember.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We were surprised, not if. That's a different conversation. It was the when. According to former President Trump, he was being taken away in handcuffs last week. Then the grand jury was taking off for Passover and Easter and Purim and who knows what else. And then boom. Oh, by the way, did we mention you're indicted? So that to me was the surprise. I don't necessarily agree with the indictment itself, but that really is more of, that's less of a surprise to me. The surprise is, wow, oh my, wait a minute, what? He was indicted? I thought initially it was spam.
Yeah. Brian, you're not surprised, obviously.
What did surprise me after covering this for so long is I thought it was going to be a 5-count indictment at most. I mean, it was Michael Cohen only had 9 indictments, 9 counts on his indictment. So I was expecting a 5 to 9 count indictment based solely on the Stormy Doinkles, interview.
Well, but let's keep.
I know. But what was surprising is the extent of it. I thought they were going to, Randy. I thought they were going to take off for National League opening day. I thought that's why they weren't going to do it. But
we had interleague. The Yankees played the Giants yesterday. I didn't even know you could have opening day with interleague. But Brian, I think we have to remember something. Counts aren't necessarily a big deal because each entry, each false entry could be treated as its own count. So we know that Mr. Cohn was paid 12 payments. So right then and there, you have 12 entries. And every time there is an entry in the books related to these hush money payments, that's a count. So whether it's 5 counts, 30 counts, I don't think that's much of a big deal.
I was surprised.
Doesn't it help at sentencing? I mean, all those counts. Doesn't it help at sentencing? All those counts.
Honestly, it really means nothing. I'll tell you where counts matter. Counts matter in a federal case because of something called the acquitted conduct rule. And that's a bizarre rule where if I go to trial on 30 counts and I beat 29 of those counts and I'm convicted of 1 count, the judge at sentencing can consider the acquitted counts so long as there was a preponderance of the evidence, meaning it was more likely than not. But in a state case, the number of counts really don't mean anything.
Well, the reason why I was surprised is because the payments to everything that Michael Cohen was involved in, it seems to indicate that there are other things. And because of the witnesses that were called before this grand jury, it leads you to believe that it has more to do with things other than Stormy Daniels.
And it might.
That's why it was surprised.
All right. There's so many things here. Let me ask you this one just right off the top of my head. When he goes in to be fingerprinted and mugged, do the Secret Service stand by his side the entire time? And at what point can a judge say, you got to say goodbye to these guys because you're on your own.
Okay, so let's walk through the process because I've been through this 10 million times. First of all, a surrender is a courtesy. There is nothing that obligates a prosecutor to arrange a surrender with a defendant. This is probably the only time in history where the defendant doesn't want that courtesy. And Mr. Trump would much rather his door be kicked in at 6 a.m., he'd be shackled, brought out in a T-shirt and his underwear, and
You're turning me on, man. Stop.
And paraded through the streets.
Yeah.
But what happens here is the DA's office will say to Mr. Trump's lawyers, okay, let's arrange a date and time. You will appear with your client 8 a.m. in front of the steps of the courthouse at 100 Center. The detectives will meet you there. He will be handed off to the detectives. I doubt very seriously that the Secret Service has any even reason, let alone need, to accompany him. He's going to be in the custody of detectives. And by the way, if the Secret Service wants to be there, who really cares? So he will be taken by the detectives. He will be fingerprinted. He will have his mugshot taken. He will be asked pedigree questions, name, rank, and serial number. They won't discuss the case with him. From there, he will be brought and he will sit outside of the courtroom. And when the judge is ready, the doors will open and he will go inside. He will be released in his own recognizance. This is all much ado about nothing. In fact, if I'm Alvin Bragg, I'd say, you know what, guys, why don't you stay in Florida? We'll do this all remotely.
We'll
get processed in Florida. They should.
They're not going to do that. And they've already said they weren't going to. And I'm going to disagree here. I don't think Donald Trump wants to be dragged out in the streets. Donald Trump is a big sissy. He's a coward. He may say that, but nothing that Donald Trump says is the truth. Donald Trump is afraid. Donald Trump doesn't want to be dragged in front of the jury. As far as the Secret Service goes, I know for a fact they've told me that what they will do is be there with him up until the point where he is inside the building and in a secure facility. It is there at that point in time. They'll go through the process. They'll stand by. They'll pick him back up, and then they'll as long as the Secret Service's responsibility will be to make sure that it is a secure facility, that he is in a secure location, and then they'll be fine with letting him walk through the process. As one of them told me when I spoke to him last night, he goes, "We're not getting into the cell with him, pal."
And by the way, he's not going into
he's going from. It was the joke that they were making. They're not going to go in there with him.
Any chance they're going to put him in Epstein's old cell?
I think, Michael Cohen would love to see him take up his residence at Otisville where he was. But that doesn't happen either.
Randy, let me throw in this next question because we'll run out of time. So these charges right now obviously are not the strongest of the three. Most people agree, or four. What happens to the other indictments now?
I think that depends on who you ask. From my perspective, how I view this is I view the Manhattan DA indictment as a body blow. It is a punch to the gut. It will force President Trump's hands down. Meanwhile, Georgia keeps going. The feds keep going. That's the headshot. That's the knockout punch. This case is a very weak case. To me, the best case here is a misdemeanor because clearly the entries.
Well, you got him on the misdemeanor cold. You got him.
Done.
Yeah.
The felony, I think that could actually get thrown out on a motion to dismiss because you need the felony that you did this in furtherance of to be a state felony, not a federal felony. But who really cares? Because you know what? This case is going to be 2, 3, 4 years down the road because there'll be a motion to dismiss the indictment. It'll be denied. Then they'll try to do an interlocutory appeal to the appellate division. Then it'll go to the Court of Appeals. Meanwhile, he's going to get indicted in Georgia and possibly get indicted federally.
So, Randy, I'm a former boxer myself, and I love the analogy, but I'm going to say it was a jab because that's what you lead with is the jab. I think the body blow is going to be either. I think the next domino to fall or the body blow will be the one in Mar-a-Lago. Then I think the haymaker. Then they'll come across with an uppercut with Georgia and finish up with the haymaker, which is January 6th.
I agree with you. That is, I could not have said that better myself.
I think that's how it's going to fall. I think Donald Trump is going to spend the rest of his life, however long it is, wrapped up in court proceedings for the remainder
Well,
of his
yeah,
life.
because he currently has 3 different civil cases, and the
Yeah.
including that, yeah.
Not to mention the fact that he's staring at indictments and felonies. This guy is, now look, I know Dr. Dingleberry, so Randy Jackson came in and I was there when he said, Donald Trump's so in such good shape, he could live to be 200 years old.
Yeah.
Look, he's
Okay.
the actuary tables. Look, let's just be honest. Whatever happens, the actuary tables are going to catch up with Donald Trump before he ever spends one day behind bars, which he'll never spend anyway. Like I said, he'll be on an ankle bracelet. He's a former president. They're going to give him that. But I don't think that he'll be out of court before he is, plugged into the ground as a martyr. And look, here's the real, if you look down the road, what I am most concerned about, where did Donald Trump go last week? He went to Waco to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Waco siege. What were the Waco people about and what sprouted from that? Well, we have
They were Trumpers before Trump.
They were modern militia movement, stockpiling of weapons. Oh, and the deep state. All of that came out of Ruby Ridge and Waco. All of the people, Donald Trump's core supporters venerate the Branch Davidians who lost their lives at Waco. So what Donald Trump is setting himself up to be is a martyr for this continuing cause. And those are the people, that's the future that you have to worry about. That's
right.
Donald Trump.
So let's combine the legal and the political moving forward here. He'll go in on Tuesday. He'll be out Tuesday afternoon. We're not going to see a trial he's not going to settle. I think we all agree on that, right? Yeah. He's not going to plead anything.
He'll be out Tuesday and in front of cameras until Friday.
Okay. My point is so yeah, but so he's not going to plea. So this thing won't see court in this calendar year, right?
No.
Okay.
Not even. It may not see court in this decade.
Well, yes. I was listening to Brian's best friend on Twitter Spaces the other day. Twitter Spaces, which I'm beginning to love, the other day, and Gorka was talking about how this guarantees not only his nomination by the Republican Party, but his ascension to 47. Let me ask you guys this. I know you're shaking your head, but will he get the Republican nomination, Brian?
No. I don't think he'll be on I don't care how it goes down. I do not see Donald Trump on the ticket in 2024.
Yeah, but hold on. I mean, there's a reason why I asked that. I'm really talking about him getting back into the Oval Office. This strengthens his movement.
I don't think so. I think there are plenty of look. The closer this gets, and the more real it gets in court. You're talking about politicians in D.C., some of them who have a lot to be worried about in court themselves. There will be a quiet backing away and hoping to find someone else. It's already...
Dude, how long have we been hearing this, what you're saying?
I can only tell you what I've seen. For example, what I saw yesterday on the Hill. I was there
by the way,
for several hours on the Hill. Every one of the Republicans I talked to privately said, I don't want him back.
But they've been saying that for 5 years.
But Chip, dovetailing Brian's point, here's how I look at it. 75 million people, let's say plus or minus, voted for Trump. And he loves to say that. But of that 75 million, how many people voted for Trump because they just don't vote Democratic? How many of those people voted for Trump because they didn't want anything even remotely associated to the Clintons? What I'm saying here is how many people are his core supporters of that 75 million, where if in fact he went down Fifth Avenue and shot someone, they'd still vote for him. That's going to be a hell of a lot less than 75 million. So the people who really do care about convicted presidents or presidents under indictment, they're gone.
Okay.
The people on the fringe are gone. The people who will just vote for someone else are gone.
Okay.
What's left?
But remember what we have here. I mean, where are these Republicans right here?
I say this to my Republican colleagues who are defending the indefensible. There will come a day when Donald Trump is gone, but your dishonor will remain.
And I agree with everything. But you were talking to Mitt Romney yesterday, Brian, or the day before.
Yes.
And, Romney's one of those guys that stood up and his family was threatened, death threats, all this stuff. You brought a point about Waco, and I think that's a legitimate point. There's some crazy people out there that do not want the status quo. They do not want to go back to, 2012. And I look at that and I ask myself, all right, there's a reason I started the show by saying every cop in New York City is ready for some kind of trouble today. And
Every cop in DC, by the way, the Capitol Police are on the same type of alert status.
Okay, which tells us that we've reached a new. There's been a paradigm shift, I think, here. I mean, come on, I grew up in D.C. Brian, you did too.
But Chip, look, everybody is talking about violence. Let's just be honest for a second. We've had 131 mass shootings in this country since the beginning of the year. We already live in a violent country.
Without a doubt, without a doubt.
And by the way, I walked Fifth Avenue the night before the election.
Yeah.
Everything was boarded up. There were dump trucks in front of Trump Tower. It was something out of a movie. It was nightmarish. It was like the day after 9/11. So we are unfortunately somewhat immune to all of this, and there are still people who talk about January 6th in the face of the video. They say, "Oh, it was just a peaceful gathering."
Well, you're making my point.
We were just exchanging ideas.
I don't think that you have to. I don't think it's going to be any more violent than it already.
But hold on. Let me ask you. Let me keep down this road.
My point.
So, can we assume safely that it's most probably going to be DeSantis or Trump for the Republican nomination?
No. I think you just played the video clip of the person the Democrats are most afraid of, and if the Republicans got their stuff together, would be most dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
That's I think Adam Kinzinger and Cheney on it.
But they're not going to get. They're going to have to run as independents. They're not going to get the Republican
nomination. They won't
nomination.
run as independents. But I think what if I know my people, my sources well enough, what they're waiting for is for a complete collapse, which may be coming because of Trump. DeSantis has all the appeal of roadkill. And so who's left? Chris Christie? At the end of the day, some believe that he'll be the nominee. But I'm telling you, if the Republicans ever put it together, and there are some, like Mitt Romney told me flat out he doesn't want to run again. And he's the one guy, the statesman, that could do it for the Republicans. But he said, I do like Liz Cheney. So if that's that's the thing that the Democrats have to be afraid of. Like you, I don't believe they could ever get out of a primary. But that's the one the Democrats have to be most afraid of. Then after that, it's Chris Christie.
But we have at least 6 legislatures, and some of the states obviously were red before, but you have people in Ohio and you have Republicans in Arizona that say that they will consider. If in fact their state loses, to appoint a new set of electors, and I'm not sure that that the Supreme Court would disagree with them that they have that right.
I think they would.
Well, not in this current crop. Roberts, let me tell you something. Roberts is a big states' rights guy, and he's a big guy that wants to allow states to handle their. I mean, he said it literally.
You have 6 guys and women on the Supreme Court who are and Chip, you know this as well as I do, conservative Catholics. So when it comes to abortion and when it comes to those type of social issues, they are not going to side in a progressive manner. However, they also claim to be originalists. They also claim to be rule of law, and they have shown already by turning down some of the things that Donald Trump has come to them with that they're not going to do with that. They are not going to move in that direction.
Well, strict constructionists are long gone. You don't. I mean that's all.
Saying that that's what they claim, and they have shown no propensity to be. Although Donald Trump claims he got him there, and he thinks he owes him, they've shown that they don't give one rat's bottom about Donald Trump and the plea for. So I don't think it's cut and dry as you think it.
Well, let me go back to a question I don't think we fully answered, which is when these other indictments come down. Okay, I'm going to assume that in Georgia, if they passed, Kemp has said that he supports a legislature being able to remove prosecutors. So if in fact they do remove a prosecutor and put one in who decides not to press forward with these charges that everybody heard Trump break the law on the tape, the federal government can take over. It's a federal crime too. In fact, it's probably more a federal crime than it is a state crime, to be honest with you. I mean, he not only interfered with a federal election, he used a telephone to do it, right? So, we got him on two. My point is that will they bring charges, Randy? If currently, while these other charges are there, if they don't, then there won't be any more charges before the 2024 election.
Yes, I think what we're going to see here, again, using Brian's analogy of the jab followed by the shot to the kidney, followed by the uppercut, followed by finish you off, whether it's death by
You guys got to work some of this testosterone out, man. Jesus.
No matter what it is, we can, when you look at this chessboard, invariably it will lead to the checkmate of Donald Trump. We're playing the long game here. And when you look at history, history tells us last person standing.
Right.
It is a war of attrition, and prosecutors and the power of the government, they are the original, the Energizer Bunny. They're going to keep going and going and going. We saw it with John Gotti, and we're going to see another Teflon Don. I think the analogy was the Teflon Don is now Velcro.
Yeah, well, that one.
Okay, so when these charges come down, obviously he'll have to appear, right? I mean, but I can see him not going. I can see him going to New York. I don't see him going to, to Georgia to show up. And would Kemp do the same deal? I mean, let's, when DeSantis says openly, he's obviously trying to play to the Trump supporters, but when he openly says he will not extradite Trump to a state, that's a violation. And I had the law right here a minute ago of this one here. This is what I was looking at. Clause 2, a person charged in any state with treason, felony, or any other crime who shall flee from justice and be found in another state shall on demand of the executive be delivered up. So, I mean, he's obviously, they're not afraid of the law anymore because they think they have the support of these people. That's where it begins to all fall apart.
Well, Chip, it's more than that. What Governor DeSantis said is like screaming into the abyss. Who really cares? Because he doesn't need to be extradited.
Right.
He's surrendering.
I think you're right, Randy. I think what that was is, look, he didn't make that until after Trump said he was going to go.
Exactly.
So DeSantis is screaming in the wind, hoping to get some of the Trump supporters to say, "Oh well, golly, he's on our side."
All right, Brian.
One other point, Chip, that you were talking about, and Randy, that you were talking about. I think that the long chess game that you're talking about, I know this for a fact. I know for a fact that all the entities that are investigating Donald Trump have representatives from the DOJ, at least in touch with them, liaisons to the DOJ. I see behind this the long, cold, steady hand of the guy that a lot of people have disparaged so far, Merrick Garland. I think he's a meticulous man. I think I've covered him before. I think he's very careful, very meticulous, and dots all the I's and crosses all the T's. And he's the last guy you want to have, I think, staring, with the barrel in front of him, aiming at you. So I'm going to say that I think that you're right. It is the long game. Last man standing ain't going to be Donald Trump.
So in a way, did yesterday kind of, by making history, open up the door for these others, make it easier for these indictments to come forward in any way?
Absolutely. Yep. Alvin Bragg definitely took one for the team in a matter of speaking. Yep. He was the first one to rush in, and you have to give him credit for that, even if it was self-serving. But the answer is unequivocally, we've now ripped the Band-Aid off. It's happened. And you know what? The world is still spinning. Time's still going on. People are still having breakfast, going to work. The world goes on.
Yeah. You're right. And what is so, there are two things that are really annoying about his supporters who are going, if they can do this to him, they could do that to you. And I go, yeah, that's called no one's above the law. That's
Okay, let me ask you another question, Brian, a kind of a political question.
Yeah.
Does this kind of push the Democratic Party a little more to the right? In other words, they have an opportunity now to get moderate Republicans. Do they, I'm assuming Biden's not going to run again. Does that mean that the person we bring in is kind of a staid, sort of kind of almost a Mitt Romney type of Democrat, a blue dog Democrat, as they used to say?
Well, in 2016, I was there at the Democratic National Convention when Hillary Clinton said, if you love the party of Lincoln, then you love us. So they've already tried that. And of course, you have to look at President Biden. Some of the policies that he's enacted do have, Donald Trump precedents to them. So particularly when it comes to immigration and some other things. And so it's not unheard of. He's not a liberal, a progressive. He's
Sure.
always been more middle of the road.
But everybody associates him with AOC and
Yeah.
and liberal,
And that
we're liberal stuff.
far left and the far right. I agree with the comedian Richard Jennings who said, if you've gone too far right or too far left, you've gone too far. So he's plugged out the middle of the Democratic Party is a middle to left leaning party. I think that they'll try to go after some of the people in look. A lot of the Republicans have already left the Republican Party, so they're trying to pick up the Lincoln Project people and the George Conways and those people who and of course Joe Walsh and even some of the former Tea Party people. So yes,
You think Joe's going to run again?
I think Joe will run for something somewhere again. Yeah, I don't know if he'll run for president, but I think he'll try to get back in Congress. And I think he has seen. I know Joe pretty well. I think he has had a change of heart. What he wanted was he believed that there were problems in D.C. and wanted to mix things up and thought Trump was the guy to mix it up, but mixed it up the wrong way. So I think his desires are still there.
Well, all right. So I just don't know what I don't know what the Democratic Party is right now, and I think
the Republican. One is the party of no heart, one is the party of no head. And after that, you can just do the math. The Democrats have no bench strength. Who are they going to run? If not, it's not going to be Kamala Harris. It's not it. And yeah, I mean, I find it hard to believe that Biden will be on the ticket next year. But the only one I've seen that's trying to raise money right now is Gavin Newsom. And Biden has given his, tip of the hat to no one yet. So is it Buttigieg? Who is it? That's the Democrats have a real problem. And as they always say, the Democratic Party can snatch defeat out of the wings of
every
time.
You heard Whitmer talk of Michigan? Yeah. Whitmer is a force.
Yeah. I mean, and then
but she's young, 53, I think.
Yeah. Then the Republicans have been no better than Democrats. They can snatch. I mean, they have glommed on to the farthest of right and have abandoned. That's why Randy's right earlier. 74 million people may have voted for him in last election, but those people are they're not the diehards. Donald Trump does have a diehard contingent of people, but the Republican Party stands for nothing.
And by the way, that is White House correspondent and author of the Free Press, Brian Karem, former federal prosecutor and current criminal defense attorney, Randy Zelin. But here's what I think. Obviously the you have people like DeSantis, and Pence said he was outraged by we won't see a Republican. But hold on, Brian. We will not see a Republican whose name you recognize come forward and say this was horrible. And it still tells me they're afraid of the mob. And while they're afraid of the mob, and not politically strong enough or courageous or whatever you want to call it, and I'm not sure Democrats would do the same. Democrats didn't stand up to Clinton in 97 after Lewinsky, and 98. I mean, they all backed down, and they said it was in the same way. They said this was a crime about sex. That's why he was in, but it wasn't, because he lied to a federal judge in a deposition, and he should have been removed from office, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, Republicans have a point now, although I can't compare Trump and Clinton, obviously, but I guess my point is that there's the political side. How much is a political side, Randy, playing into, for example, the Supreme Court is all watching this morning, and they realize that they're going to have cases in front of them that will empower some of this mob moving forward. Do they think like that at all?
Unfortunately, politics seems to have pervaded, denigrated, and just messed everything up. It is unbelievable. There's no longer an objective truth. A Republican would say that I have a full head of hair just because I'm a Republican.
I love it.
Just because I'm a Republican. And at some point, we have got to crash. We have got to hit bottom, and then drag ourselves back up and say, who is it that we really stand for? So yes, politics is everywhere. Politics has become everything. It's god awful. And unfortunately, I think it's going to take a real disaster before we all wake up, shake ourselves off and say, wait a minute, we're all Americans. We all do play for the same team. We've got to stop this. And by the way, it may take something like a terrorist attack. It may take something so awful that galvanizes us as one and reminds us we're not red, we're not blue, we're not killing each other. We're all in this together.
Well, we are killing each other. To Brian's point earlier about, with guns. I mean, there's only 20 million Americans who own AR-15 style weapons. And obviously that's still an issue that we're trying to deal with. And it's divided politically. And again, it comes down to money. Since Citizens United, to me, if there's anything, part of the accusations at Bragg are the Soros-backed, which is an anti-Semitic dig. We all know where that's coming from. And so I look at this and I think to myself that the disease that is this group of Americans that stormed the Capitol on the 6th of January in 2021 is alive and growing. And you say no, but it does grow. It grows on 4chan. It's growing out there, and they have families and friends, and they're slowly coming around. And I think this arrest plays into that for a lot of them. Let's be honest. 95% of Americans think this arrest was about paying off a porn star. They think that the whole thing, and the truth
Nobody
is,
knows what it is yet. They haven't unsealed the indictment. Everybody's guessing. And that's why I get upset with the Republicans going, this is you haven't even seen the charges we should not jump into that and guess what it is. And
I'm not guessing. I'm just saying what they're saying, Brian.
I know. I'm not criticizing you, Chip. I'm saying that that's what the problem is. And the Republicans have stoked it. Let's see the evidence. This is the American justice system working. If he beats the rap, he beats the rap. He went through it. He was indicted. He gets out. That's how it works.
And by the way, Chip, to Brian's point, and I think this is something that everyone is glossing over, Alvin Bragg did not indict.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
The grand jury indicted. Ordinary citizens indicted Donald Trump.
But Randy, ordinary citizens who heard one side of a story.
That's actually, they didn't, because they heard from Robert Costello. The defense went to the prosecutor and said, please tell the grand jury about Bob Costello. And if they decide they want to hear from him, let them issue a subpoena. They did. Bob Costello.
We don't know what he said, though, Brandy. We don't know how.
Yes, we do. We do that. Michael Cohen's lawyer walked into the grand jury and said, don't believe
Michael
what
Cohen.
he
Michael
said.
Cohen is a liar. Don't believe him.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
And they still indicted him. Alvin Bragg did not indict Donald Trump. A bunch of ordinary citizens indicted Donald Trump. And if a bunch of those same ordinary citizens decide that there's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt, then he will walk out.
I feel like I'm in high school and my teacher's all in my shit. But here's the thing, Randy, and you and I both know this, that we don't know exactly what the questions were for Costello. And we don't know if he brought, because he limits what Costello answers to, and he can do whatever he wants to in there, right?
No, Chip, I will tell you, pragmatically speaking, if I'm a prosecutor and a defense witness is called into the grand jury at the request of the defense, I basically would say, listen, is there something that you want to say to these grand jurors? Because you don't want a judge looking at you after the fact and saying, you know something, you suppressed this witness. And by the way, the grand jurors have the right to ask questions if they choose to. So believe me, Costello's story got out there and it was rejected.
Ever heard of a runaway grand jury? I mean, the grand jury could take that thing over and the prosecutor could have
so you don't subscribe to the...
No, but we do know, as Randy said, Costello came out and pointed the finger and said, Michael Cohen is a liar. Don't believe him.
All right. Well, not to get everybody's hopes up, but you and I know the old saw about grand jury can indict a ham sandwich.
Well, that's the rumor, except according to Hannity, remember he said this grand jury couldn't indict a ham sandwich. And then the next day they did.
Well, I mean, we've already kind of established that all the extra counts don't really mean as much as they sound. They sound
we don't know
overwhelming.
what they mean yet.
Well, no, I just mean not having 30 counts as opposed to 3 or 4 doesn't necessarily mean your case is 10 times stronger.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So I guess what I'm looking at here and trying to deduce, I've asked this question before, so I'll ask it again. So this thing's all going to be in our rearview mirror after about a week. Okay. People will be talking about it. We're not going to hear anything. I don't know when discovery is in a case like this, but I would assume it's sometime in the next.
Do you realize that he'll be fundraising? Off
No, no, no.
this?
I know he'll be fundraising.
Chip, let me answer that question for you. That's a great question. Discovery. New York has revamped their entire way of doing discovery. Discovery is going to be fast. It is going to be furious. It is mandatory. The DA basically has to turn over his entire case almost immediately. It's not like the old days, and it's not like federal discovery where it's like pulling teeth under Rule 16 and you get nothing until a week before the trial, and then you get a flurry of everything that's coming from the witnesses.
No more.
They got to turn it all over.
Okay. Yeah, but is there anything they're going to get that's going to be a real surprise, do you think?
Listen, we don't, again, to Brian's point, we don't know, but the DA's got to turn over everything, including bad stuff about their witnesses, stuff that could be used to impeach their witnesses. The defense gets it all.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's two witnesses really in this case that they really care about on cross. And I guess that would be Cohen. Well, maybe just Cohen, because they're not going to bring Stormy Daniels in. Although, you know, I mean, what this is going to come down to, kind of like the incredulity of why would this attorney get a home equity loan and give $130,000 of that to a porn star? I mean, why would
somebody take a bullet for him?
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, and I'd also think, Chip, we got to look. I just saw the piece that Weisselberg has dumped his attorney, which could mean that there's going to be problems ahead for Donald Trump via Weisselberg, and that's the guy I submit to you that Donald Trump is most afraid of. So if he ends up testifying, if he ends up involved in this in any way, Donald Trump is he's indicted.
And he can't take the fifth.
Think about the people who know the most about you.
Yeah.
Aside from your wife, your lawyer, your accountant, and of course your doctor. Yeah. But if you have his lawyer and you have his accountant,
yeah,
where are you going?
I've seen this movie. It does end well.
Well, I would like to think that the American public is his doctor, and we're putting a glove on now as we speak.
Yeah, I ain't reaching up there though, pal.
So obviously, you know, this is, you know, it's like it's coming up on 11 o'clock on the East Coast. I've been reading on the New York Daily News. Doesn't seem like anything's going on in the city. Nothing's happening right now in Washington, D.C. I think the reaction to this is more muted than people expected because it's been such a long time coming. Last question here, I guess. So Merrick Garland seems to me that the real case there is more about the documents than it is January 6th. Would you agree that of those two cases, the one that probably has the most meat in court, Randy, would be the documents?
It's difficult to say because, yes, certainly the documents case also appears to be a slam dunk, but that's rather an unemotional case. The emotional case, the emotional meat is January 6th. And by the way, that's the one case that could disqualify Trump from ever holding office again. Because remember, the only qualifications you need to be president are at least 35, born in this country, and here for 14 years. You could run from jail. You could be president from jail unless, under the 14th Amendment, you are convicted of treason or sedition.
And I'll remind everyone that case boils down to getting Mark Meadows to squeal. We've already heard from Cassidy Hutchinson, the low-level functionary in the White House, who said that Mark Meadows was on the phone with Trump. It's, Michael Zelin, also a former federal prosecutor, and likened it to spokes on a wheel, and there's a hub. All the people that are involved in the spokes don't know what's going on. Only the hub really does. And for him, he says the hub was on that day, on January 6th, was the president, Mark Meadows, and maybe one or two other people. So he's going to be key, and he might even be key in Georgia. Mike Pence might be a key to that as well. And getting those people to testify will determine whether or not there's charges or what the charges will be. But Randy's right. And unless there's any action taken, Donald Trump could run from jail, and hell, he would, as long as he can make money, because this is all about a grift.
And moving forward here, I think that you kind of hit on it there. Republicans will start to appear when they can profit from it. We all know that. We know that when they see that the MAGA group is starting to slip away, that's when they'll stand up, and we can almost
starts to slip away.
Well, that's why I don't think our candidate or anyone's candidate has revealed him or herself yet.
I agree.
I think people are waiting to see the same way Biden waited before he ran. Let me see the way things are going to shake out, because if I'm going to do this, I think I want to win it.
Right. Yeah. And it's a tough year. This is a, the president Biden always says, look, he says, remember, we are the United States. He always stresses united. And he says we are at an inflection point. In a meeting with Democratic leaders in that Zoom call from the White House I was at, yesterday, I can't even remember my days anymore. But he talked about being hopeful and that the best is yet to come, and that democracies are strengthening themselves. I think his leadership has pushed it in that direction, but I do believe that it's going to be very difficult. This is going to be this election, as last election and the last election, are very important. That 2024 is going to be a turning point in the United States of America.
Oh, without a doubt, without. I mean, in fact, if Trump would get elected with a Republican House and Senate, I mean, you can watch my exodus out of this place. That's for sure.
Well, I hesitate. A lot of people are very giddy that Donald Trump was, or happy that Donald Trump was indicted. I do not share that enthusiasm, because to me it's depressing that the greatest nation on this earth is having to indict a former president. And there are people saying that we're a banana republic for doing it. No, we're a banana republic if we don't.
Correct.
So,
listen, we once laughed, I remember, and then I got a bunch of Cornell law students who are dying for my take on all of this. But remember, once upon a time, we would laugh at what was going on in Italy and going on in France and going on where their leaders were getting caught with bribes and hookers and all kinds of awful stuff and in-out.
Or the fist fights in Parliament. Remember that?
And not here. It would never happen here. Well, it's happening here.
Well, I look at the world right now since Trump, and some of the xenophobia. I look at in Israel right now, what Netanyahu's trying to do, to essentially take the legs out from the judiciary, and you saw how many people came to the streets. I think AOC and some of the progressive left have the ability coming up soon, and I don't know how they're going to do this or handle it, but there is a movement there, I think, that would dwarf MAGA by a factor of 2 or 3. There are many Americans living below the poverty line who see what's happening. There are African Americans and other minorities in this country that see what's happening. And you got Tom Arnold told me, not on the air, unfortunately, but that Trump would regularly use the N-word, and many people witnessed it. The guy from The Apprentice apparently has tapes of it, but the kind of stuff, I don't even know if that would help now. I think we've crossed the line.
Yeah. They obviously would embrace it. These are racists who would embrace that. And in fact, that's the core. That's why he was in Waco. That's why he's dipping heavily into that. But Chip, to your point, those people are a minority. And that's a minority of people in this country, not a majority. And I feel
like Ben Bradley at the end of All of the President's Men, he goes, would somebody go on the goddamn record? Will somebody go, and that's what I want to see in
Somebody will.
I hope so. I'm thinking of the Doonesbury comic strip during Nixon, when all the congressmen are talking about going after Nixon, and at the end, big eyes, and the guy's just going, if he'd only rob a bank, then we'd have him.
Well, obviously, we're going to learn a lot more. You guys were it was awesome for you to come here last minute. I really appreciate it.
What a privilege to be on with both of you. Thank you.
Randy, good to see you, my friend. You look great, buddy. All right, y'all be well. Thank you so much,
guys.
Guys.
This weekend, Chip.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys. All right, bye-bye now. All right. Wow. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to be doing, this was supposed to have done yesterday, and I got a couple people that asked about that. We're going to keep doing this on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern time and 2 p.m. Pacific. And trying to get you the kind of people on here that can answer a lot of the questions and have some of the insight that, makes this whole thing worthwhile. Thank you for, by the way, if you want to, I return all my email at chip@chipfranklin.com. If there's, if you have a suggestion or an idea or something, please feel free, give me a shot. Again, at chip@chipfranklin.com. Follow me on Twitter and subscribe to this channel while you're here. That'd be a big help as well. All right. Again, I want to thank Randy Zelin. I want to thank my good friend, the one and only Brian Karem. His book is called Free the Press. Check it out. That's it for me. My son is getting married on Saturday, and I'll be in Joshua Tree checking it out. So it should be a lot of fun. We'll see you next Tuesday. Till then, be safe.
I can handle things. overcome. Yes, we can.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
What the f is wrong with you?